Sporting Journal Radio, presented by OnX.
All right, welcome back. I'm Brett Amundson. Thanks for tuning in on this station right here by downloading the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts or by listening on demand at our website or watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble. Make sure you like and follow us. Share this with your friends if you like what you're seeing. Smash that like button, as they say. And we got a couple of great guests. We're going to talk ice fishing. Yeah, but we're going to start off with a little bit of whitetail. Randin Olson from Lockjaw Guide Service is with us, as well as Jason Mitchell. And Jason, first of all, congratulations on the nice buck that you shot recently.
Oh, thank you. I actually just shot it last night, so I got it hanging up here. We're just caping it out and cutting it up right now.
So as I was telling you off the air, Dan and I were kind of prepping for this show, and he's like, "Oh, Jason just shot a real nice deer." So I was like, "Well," and I'd put a message out to you asking if you wanted to be on the show this week, and Dan's like, "Oh, Jason's deer hunt just shot a giant buck." I'm like, he's probably up in Canada somewhere then. No, this is a North Dakota deer.
Yeah, I was just in North Dakota, and I hunt quite a bit around North Dakota. I mean, I was in Manitoba last week, but I've been hunting a lot, and it's funny. I had a I had a really big deer, maybe 100 yards away from me, early September, and I haven't been able to get on a big deer since. And I've been starting to feel like Elmer Fudd. Just like, it's just kind of a deer where the lows are low and the highs are high, and nothing was really going right. And I don't like to overhunt stuff and fluke stuff. I think if you hunt too much in the deer pattern you, then you're really having a tough time. But it all came together last night and got that one. And I shot that with my gratis tag on some land that I own. I still have my archery tag as well, so I'm not done yet. But and I could have hunted during the muzzleloader. It's muzzleloader season right now, so I could have hunted a muzzleloader last night. I thought about picking up the muzzleloader, and I thought, I'd rather shoot one with a bow. And glad I did, but I was almost regretting it because I was hunting out of an old abandoned farmstead, and I was in an old barn shooting out the window. And I shot a few deer out of that with a rifle, and my son shot his first deer out of it with a rifle here earlier this fall during the youth season. And but I'd never hunted it with a bow, and so when I got in there, I couldn't shoot to the right, and there was like an old stall and shooting out the window. So I had to wait for the deer to get left of me quite a ways. So I had him standing at 30 yards for a long time, broadside, perfect shot, and I couldn't get that far over to shoot. And so finally he started walking away. Some raccoons came by and he started walking away. And he's walking pretty fast directly away from me, but he's kind of quartering to the left where he's starting to get where I can shoot at him. And just at about 43 yards, he kind of turned a little bit, and not really quite broadside, but just enough of a pump, right? 44 yards. I mean, I didn't have time to adjust pins or nothing. I already ranged it. And so I was on my 30-yard pin. I've got one of those rotating sights, and I just went about 4 inches high, and we got right behind the shoulder, and he went 100 yards or so and dead. So
there might be nothing, maybe nothing worse than having a shooter buck in range but not shootable. Like something that branches in the way, or something's in the way, the heart starts racing, you start to, you might start to shake a little bit. Had you drawn back yet, or were you able to?
I drew back once, and then I let off, and then when he started moving, it happened so fast, like, here's my chance, And I tell you what, I've screwed up a lot of opportunities too by not waiting or trying to force a shot or trying to force a bad angle. Like if you don't have your 3 anchor points, if you don't, if you got to stretch and lean and get funny with your body position, wait. Worst case scenario is you don't own the deer and the deer walks away, and 2 days later you kill him. But if that deer's gut shot somewhere 2 miles away, you never get another opportunity. So, sometimes you just be patient, but when they give you an inch, you better take a mile.
Absolutely. Yeah, I took a tough shot. I had one shooter so far this year that I've been able to see in the daylight. And I had a tough shot, and I missed him, and never saw him again. So I get that. So how cool is that, though? I mean, that's just pure North Dakota right there to be shooting out of an old barn, right?
Oh, I know. And it's funny, So you look at like say pre-settlement, right, or before all the European immigrants came into North Dakota and farmed and ranched and stuff, and there's hardly any trees on the prairie, and there weren't that many white-tailed deer. then everybody, planted these old tree clams, some of these old farmsteads, they're over 100 years old, and nobody's lived in them for, 30 to 50 years. And just this old tree growth, and it's just great winter cover. And so a lot of times late in the year, especially, these deer will yard up or herd up in these old abandoned farmsteads if there's corn or soybeans around. And so, yeah, that's something we do a lot, especially late season. They're pretty tough to beat.
Nothing says North Dakota like shooting a big buck out of an old barn or catching a walleye that's been hiding out in an old barn. I saw that you've been
perfect scent control too. It's just like the perfect blind. They never get tired of it. You can hunt it 5 days in a row with the right wind and never wear out your welcome. So it is when they get in there, it's a pretty deadly trap or setup. So.
Randin Olson is with us as well from Ottertail Lakes Country. Randin, did you shoot a deer this year?
No. I've been running muskie trips up until last Tuesday. So I just put the boat away now. Kind of focused on the muskies this season. Basically went from the boat one day to ice fishing the next.
How was your muskie season?
It was really good this year. We got a lot of fish to come in. We tried some different lakes, and the amount of fish we've seen this year is probably the highest I've seen in the last 5 or 6 years.
Oh, really?
There was a lot of fish. Yeah, it was a really good fall just to get to see numbers of fish and a lot of opportunities. And the bite was pretty good. It stayed pretty steady through the whole fall. We didn't have those highs and lows like we normally have.
So when we filmed that show for Prairie Sportsman, we talked about moon phases and patterning fish, and then the 2 fish we caught were outside the majors, outside the minors. I don't think they were in either of the majors or the minors. So did you notice any sort of, obviously wild critters they're not gonna always be patternable, but did you notice any type of trend or pattern this fall with your muskies?
Yeah, so the big trend this year was if you got within the 3 days leading up to a moon phase. So you had the last 3 days plus the day of the moon phase, whether it's a new moon or full moon, those fish would jump back into those major or minor patterns. Once you got past that moon phase, then it went back to being outside of those majors or minors. So it was kind of interesting to see that unfold this all fall. It was a cool experience. It was kind of like playing a puzzle with them.
Sure. Hey, are you going to be down at the St. Paul Ice Show this weekend?
I won't be at St. Paul, but I'll be up in Fargo next weekend.
Oh, the Fargo show, okay.
Yep.
All right. Jason, I know you're going down to St. Paul. Are you going to be in Fargo next weekend then too?
No, I'll be at St. Paul this weekend. Then I'll be at Shields Ice Fest in Eden Prairie on, I think, Friday, and then Shields Ice Fest in Sioux Falls on Saturday.
Okay. And I think I saw a post from you the other day. You were out checking some sloughs for ice. What did you see out there?
Oh, there's anywhere from 4 to 6 inches on a lot of the small lakes and sloughs in North Dakota. Some of the larger lakes are still wide open, so it varies a little bit. But yeah, we're just starting to get going. We've been just walking out. There's some lakes where you could probably take a small quad or 4-wheeler or maybe a small snowmobile. But it's good ice. We've had some nice days. Like yesterday, there was so much water on top of the ice and it was so slippery by the end of the day. It didn't feel like it got that warm, although I heard down in Bismarck it was like 55, 60 degrees. But up where we're at, it didn't feel that warm. It was kind of windy all day. But we're just starting to get out. There's been some walleyes getting caught in some of the small feeder lakes around Devil's Lake, and then there's been some people getting out and catching some fish. So
Devil's Lake still wide open.
Yeah, there's still a lot of wide open. Like north end of Creels, the back ends of the bays have ice, but you look out towards the main lake and out towards the south end of 6 Mile Bay, and you can still see open water. So.
You were talking about using a spud bar. I think, was that your video I was watching? You were talking about checking safe ice?
Yeah, I love to get out, and I've been out the first one out many times. But one trend I've been seeing, and it's great that people are excited to get out ice fishing. I am too, but I'm seeing so many people, especially like on Instagram and YouTube and stuff, going out on, 2 inches or less of ice and, making videos on it. And it gets a lot of attention, don't get me wrong, but goodness, sooner or later, somebody's going to get killed, and so I think, you got to be scared of the ice. You got to respect that ice. I remember the last time I fell through, I was in my early 20s, right out of basic training, and best shape of my life. And man, I had all I could do to get out. And I can't even tell you how exhausting and terrifying it is. And so, a spud bar is just something on early ice where you can check, hit the spud bar on the ice as you walk. And if it just saves you from walking into a bad spot, and early ice obviously is the time to use a spud bar. If you're out trying to get out on Lake Superior, lake trout fishing, that's definitely a place to have a spud bar. I mean, wherever there's current, wherever there's sketchy ice, I mean, just that spud bar is the most important thing you can have. I mean, it's more important than a flotation suit. It's more important than ice picks or a throw rope, because it just keeps you out of trouble. You just don't walk into stuff. Walking in and walking in and then drilling a hole. By then it's too late. So walk with that spud bar and hit the ice as you walk and keep you out of a lot of trouble.
Tell me about that time you went through the ice.
Well, I was actually pheasant hunting. There's a bunch of pheasants on the edge of a coulee. There's this creek that wound through the bottom of the coulee. It's pretty deep in spots, and they're kind of on the edge, of this cornfield. And I thought, boy, if I can just slide down this creek, I can get right up behind them, because they're pheasants in December are, they're wild. They run. They won't let you get anywhere close to them if they know that you're around. And so I thought I could get in there real quietly, because there was crunchy, loud snow and stuff, and so I was sneaking along, and boom, down I went. And goodness, it was really cold out that day, and I had all I could do to get back to the pickup. It was I couldn't even hold the keys with my hand. I had to use both my thumbs. Nothing works. Your hands don't work. Your fingers don't work. I couldn't even get my keys out of my pocket. I had to finally shake my pocket inside out and shake them down the leg of my Carhartt bibs I was wearing at the time, and lay down on the ground and grab the keys with both of my thumbs like this. It was just a pretty tough deal. And so, I definitely respect the ice.
I've gone through pheasant hunting a bunch of times. Nothing very deep. It's more of that I think that's the sheer terror you feel as your boots start to break through the ice and not knowing, how deep it is or what's underneath it. I filled up my boots many times, but one time we were spring snow goose hunting in South Dakota a few years ago. And we were just scouting a field, and there was a couple of us on a four-wheeler. We were ripping out in the middle of the field. There's a pond out there, and the pond had a ring of ice around the edge. Well, I had my lab with Mika, and there was like a pair of Canada geese just off the ice, and she was just kind of running around. And she saw those two geese out there, and I saw her ears go up, and I knew right away she was heading right for that. And that sheet of ice, that shelf went out, probably a good 50 yards or so. And so she got out to the edge of it and just tried to stop and slid right off and fell in. And luckily it was just shallow enough that she could touch with her back legs, and she was able to put her front legs up, but she couldn't get out. So, and I didn't have, waders with, we were just scouting, so we didn't have any gear. We were barely dressed for cold weather. And so we pulled that wheeler up to the edge, and I just went out in my boots and my pants, and I just broke ice all the way out to her. So it was past my waist, and oh, you don't want me to tell this story?
Trying to add to it.
Yeah,
you got something wrong.
So coming back, I had a trail broken for her, so she's kind of swimming back behind me. And I got halfway back, and I couldn't feel anything from the waist down anymore. And I was pretty much, to get my legs to move, I had to literally pick up one leg and lift it in front of me, and then pick up my other leg to lift it in front of me. And
when your toes get froze, it's terrible.
It was
that's a lot. That's a terrifying deal.
Yeah, that's when I finally realized. I mean, that's the closest I've come to like falling through the ice, and I wasn't falling through, but that's the closest scenario that I've been where I can understand just what that cold water can do to a body, and how quickly it can happen. So it's a very dangerous situation. Randin, have you ever gone through the ice?
One time, just up to my waist. It wasn't very deep, and I was able to I had some friends with who got out pretty quickly and got back. But it's a terrifying experience. You guys nailed it on the head. As soon as you feel that ice start to give way, your mind starts racing, and it's hard to calm yourself down and try to do the right thing to get out, and then like Jason said, the spud bars are invaluable. You see so many people, they'll check ice the first 20, 30 yards offshore, and then they lay the spud bar back in the sled and start walking. I all the time, every year. You got to spud bar your way all the way to your spot. In fact, you probably shouldn't even take anything with you. You should just take the spud bar and a friend behind you and just walk your way out and get a good trail before you start hauling stuff out. There's no fish is worth going through and having to deal with all that.
For sure. Have you been out checking ice up there?
We've been checking some things out. We're kind of in the same boat as Jason is. The big lakes are still pretty open. If you don't mind busting a tail light, you could probably still put some boats in. But the small lakes are pretty locked up. I just checked Walker Lake by my house here yesterday. There was about 4 to 6 inches on it, kind of depending on where you're at. It's seeing anywhere from 2 to 6 inches. And like I said, there's still a lot of open water. So we got plenty of time. You don't have to rush it.
How is it, Dan, that our big lakes that the geese stage on that we're still trying to hunt, they're froze over, but all the big lakes north of us are still wide open?
That's unfortunate luck. That's our luck is what it is.
God dang. Well, I got a lot of pheasant hunting to do yet, so I'm not too excited about early ice fishing for a number of the reasons that we just discussed. But for those sloughs or small lakes that have fishable ice, say you guys are going to go after walleyes. Jason, maybe I'll start with you here. What's your first go-to? Do you have a lure you like to try? Does it depend on the lake that you're going to? Or do you have, like, it's the first ice walleye I'm going to go after, this is what I'm going to use?
A lot of times, we're finding them shallow, and a lot of times they are fairly aggressive if you can find them. And so, that old shoreline, like on a lot of these dish bowl lakes, there's kind of that shoreline where a lot of times it might be sand or rock in places. And then, transition to the soft bottom of the basin and it'll be just flat across the middle. And a lot of times we're finding fish on that harder bottom up on that old shoreline or shallow. And, a lot of times they're less than 10 feet of water. Sometimes it's a morning and evening bite, but, you get dirty water like up on Alice and Irvin right now. The water's so stained, you'll catch them through the day. And a lot of rattle baits, some glide baits, but a lot of basic spoons will work. And to be honest, you can catch fish if you're in the right place at the right time. You can use the wrong lure, and so the big thing is finding the right place. A lot of times this time of year I'll have the same lure tied on all week because I know it's not the lure. If I'm not catching them, it's not the lure. It's because I'm not finding them yet. And so with that in mind, use lures that you can use to find fish, because usually if you find them, you'll catch them. It's not a finesse deal. It's not a, if they use lures where the fish can find you, because they are usually aggressive. And so, just a lot of basic spoons, rattle baits, glide baits, fishing it with a pretty aggressive cadence, and then as winter progresses, a lot of times things will get tougher. We might have to change it up a little bit, but aggressive presentation is kind of the name of the game right now for me.
I didn't realize it until just now, but I have probably the two guys who have been the most influential in changing my perception of where to find walleyes. In fact, to find walleyes in shallower water more often, it's been, watching or listening to you two guys, Jason and Randin, to change my mind about having to go a little bit deeper to find walleyes. Randin, is the same thing? I know this summer you were finding walleyes pretty shallow in Ottertail County there. Are you gonna target some shallower water to try to find walleyes this winter?
Yeah, it's going to be shallow again, and I'm going to try to stick there as long as I can. Aggressive is kind of the way I like to do it too. The one thing with shallow waters is, at least around here, you can spook fish if you're running around and dropping things on the ice and moving hard and fast. So you got to kind of be a little mindful of how much noise you're making. One thing I really like to do is the old style wind tip-ups, the wind jiggers. I'll put a little spoon on that and just kind of set those zigzagged across that break line. And that's a good tool just to help me locate where some fish are cruising before I start setting some things up. So I'm big on movement, especially early in the year. Just keep moving. Those fish are going to keep moving. And I try to focus on some kind of a difference. Usually any kind of a rock point or weed line, little cut in the weed bed, just anything that's different in the spot you're looking to fish. Try to focus in on those areas. And like I said, noise can be a big deal. We got really clear water around here. It gets a little tough to catch them in the middle of the day up shallow. But they're there, they're cruising. Ask anybody that's sitting in a spear house. They see big walleyes all the time up there. So you just got to use your head a little bit and explore.
You think, you can spear walleyes in South Dakota. Do you think we'll ever see that in Minnesota?
Probably not.
No, probably not. No, probably not. I think it'd be kind of, I don't know. It'd be kind of fun, I guess. I don't know. I go back and forth on spearing, but I like to have the option of catch and release. That's my only issue with spearing. But all right, Randin, if people want to do some fishing with you, your guide service, you're going to be running houses all winter. How do they reach you?
Yeah, the best way to get a hold of me is just give me a call at 218-640-0158. Otherwise, you can look us up at Lockjaw Guide Service on Facebook or lockjawguideservice.com.
And Jason, you're not guiding anymore, right? You got
No.
You just got a lot of stuff going on, TV, podcast, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, the television keeps us pretty busy. I mean, that's what I did for years, obviously, is guide, and I haven't guided now in quite a few years, actually. Obviously, when somebody want to get tired of driving all over, I'll go back to guiding. I like doing it.
It's fun, but there's so much. I don't want to say there's a lot of pressure in it, but there's a lot of pressure in it. You gotta. I always tell people that you can catch a lot of fish or kill a lot of ducks or whatever and be a terrible guide. Guiding is so much more than just being successful hunting and fishing. But the same thing goes for making a television show, whether it's a fishing show or a hunting show. There's a lot of pressure to be successful on camera.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of days where we're not. It'd be pretty boring television some days. I mean, there's,
yeah.
Ultimately, we do spend a lot of time trying stuff that doesn't work just because, in my mind, the most special bites you ever find is when you take risk and, try things or think of things that nobody else has. And sometimes, we try little lakes, for example, somewhere back in the woods that, think, boy, nobody knows about this. And then we get back there and then we realize, wow, now we know why nobody ever fishes here. And ultimately we got to try a lot of different presentations and lures and, we're always trying to expand, our repertoire per se, and so we try a lot of stuff, especially with lures, you got to try a lot of stuff to, figure out if a prototype is correct, so we just try to spend a lot of time fishing, and there's a lot of days where we wouldn't have a whole lot to film, but spend enough time and you get it done. So
I don't think people realize how much filming actually will go into like a 22-minute show. A lot of times there's a lot of unsuccessful trips too.
Well, yeah. And from an integrity standpoint, I mean, typically when you see a show, we've got maybe a day and a half in the sense that when you are filming, it does slow the day down, so you, like when you're really wrapping off fish, say your ice fish or whatever, and the cameraman needs tight shots of this and a shot of that. And, we need to get a release shot and all this different stuff. And you're looking at these fish disappearing on your Vexler. And it's like, just let me get back down there. And so it can kind of almost, it hurts you in a lot of ways. Or same thing with deer hunting. The cameraman's on the deer and you're not, and you're on the deer and the cameraman's not because you're sitting 5 feet apart in the woods. I mean, there's things that definitely make it more difficult. But typically, day of fishing is what you give the show, and typically we might spend another half day just shooting underwater or shooting lures or shooting, drone and landscape shots and things like that. Just because, that's one thing I don't want to show is, you spend 7-8 days filming something and do a 22-minute show to show everybody how great a lure is. If it takes that long, it's probably not that great of a lure. And that's important too, just from an integrity, credibility standpoint too. So.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate the time. Jason, have fun down in St. Paul, of course, and Randin in Fargo next weekend, and then Jason again, Eden Prairie Shields and Sioux Falls Shields. Good luck to you guys this winter, and thanks for being on the show.
Hear more at sportingjournalradio.com or wherever you get podcasts.
Looking for winter adventure? Might as well pick a place with over 1,000 lakes. Ottertail County, Minnesota is in the middle of everywhere, offers a simpler pace, and has something for everyone. Find your inner otter at ottertaillakescountry.com.